The diner had always been a quiet place, the kind of roadside stop where truckers grabbed black coffee at dawn and families passing through ordered stacks of pancakes before hitting the highway again. Clarissa worked there nearly every day, her blonde hair tied back in a simple ponytail, her uniform a little worn at the edges from long shifts. She wasn't anyone special in her own mind, just a hard-working waitress trying to make ends meet in a small town where people noticed everything and forgot nothing. That Tuesday morning began like any other. The coffee was brewing, the bell over the door chimed whenever someone walked in, and the radio in the kitchen hummed out old country songs. But around mid-morning the door swung open, and in walked a man who made everyone in the diner go quiet. He was big. Broad shoulders, heavy boots, long leather jacket with patches stitched across it. His beard was grizzled, his eyes sharp and restless. Across his back, the unmistakable insignia of the Hells Angels stretched across the leather like a warning, bold letters, and the red and white death's head. The room seemed to stiffen. A mother pulled her child closer. Two older men looked away, and even the cook in the back paused to peek out from the kitchen window. Small towns thrived on whispers, and in places like this, a man wearing a patch like that was less a person and more a story waiting to be told. The biker sat at the counter, ordered nothing more than coffee, and rested his rough hands on the scarred wood. Clarissa didn't hesitate. She poured him his coffee, set down a napkin, and offered him the same tired but genuine smile she gave every customer. "Cream and sugar?" she asked. "Black's fine," he said, his voice low but polite. It might have ended there, just another stranger passing through. But two police officers entered a few minutes later. Their patrol car had been parked outside, and the second they spotted the leather jacket and the patch, their posture shifted. One of them, tall and broad with mirrored sunglasses, walked right up to the counter. "Morning," the officer said, though his tone wasn't friendly. "Mind showing us some ID?" The biker didn't move right away. He lifted his cup slowly, took a sip, and then set it back down. "I'm just here for coffee," he said. "That's not what I asked," the officer snapped. "Let's see some ID." The diner went silent again. Clarissa felt her pulse quicken. She wasn't naive. She knew the reputation that came with the Hells Angels, but she also saw something else in that moment. A man who hadn't caused a bit of trouble, who was being treated like a criminal just for the patch on his back. "He hasn't done anything," Clarissa said, her voice cutting through the silence. She surprised even herself. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, you don't want to get involved in this." But she was already involved. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "He came in, ordered a coffee, and hasn't bothered anyone. You can't just walk in here and harass people because of how they look." The biker's eyes flicked toward her, something unreadable in them. Maybe surprise, maybe gratitude. The officer stiffened, clearly not used to being challenged by a waitress in a small-town diner. But Clarissa didn't back down. She stood behind the counter with her chin up, her hands planted firmly on the edge of the counter. "If he causes trouble, I'll be the first to call you," she continued. "But until then, he's just a paying customer, same as anyone else." The tension stretched thick across the room. Finally, after a moment that seemed far too long, the officers muttered something under their breath and turned to leave. The bell above the door jingled as they stepped out, the sound strangely loud in the silence that followed. The biker finished his coffee without another word, dropped some cash on the counter, and stood. He looked at Clarissa for a long moment, as if memorizing her face. Then he gave her the slightest nod, a gesture heavy with meaning, and walked out the door. Clarissa exhaled slowly, only then realizing how tightly she'd been holding her breath. The rest of the day passed quietly. By nightfall, she'd convinced herself it was nothing more than a strange, tense encounter that would fade like any other day. But the next morning, as she walked into the diner just after sunrise, she froze. The parking lot was full, not with trucks or family sedans, but with motorcycles. Row after row of chrome gleamed under the early light, the sound of engines rumbling like distant thunder. At least 200 bikes, lined up tight and proud, the patches on their jackets identical to the one she had defended the day before. Inside, the diner was already crowded. The leather-clad men and women filled the booths and stools, their voices low but steady, their presence impossible to ignore. At the very center sat the same man from yesterday, his expression calm but his eyes fixed on her. Clarissa's heart raced, but not from fear. She stepped inside, the bell over the door ringing faintly against the roar of motorcycles outside. The man rose to his feet. "This is her," he said to the room. His voice carried weight, and instantly the chatter died down. "This is the woman who stood up for me when nobody else would." All eyes turned to her. For a moment Clarissa felt small, almost swallowed up by the sheer weight of the room. Then the man continued. "In this world, loyalty's everything. Respect's everything. Yesterday, she gave me both when she didn't have to. So from now on, this diner is under our protection. Anybody messes with this place, they mess with all of us." The room erupted in applause, not wild cheering, but a steady, thunderous approval that rattled the windows. Clarissa blinked back sudden tears. She had only wanted to do the right thing, to stop what she saw as unfairness. She never imagined it would bring 200 people to her doorstep the next morning. Their loyalty offered freely, their gratitude written across every patch, every nod, every smile. The day was unlike anything the town had ever seen. Bikers filled every booth, ordered stacks of pancakes and endless cups of coffee. They tipped generously, laughed loudly, and treated the small diner like sacred ground. Outside, passing cars slowed, their drivers staring at the sea of motorcycles parked like a protective wall around the building. By the time the sun dipped low, Clarissa finally understood what had happened. A single act of courage, just a few words spoken when no one else dared, had created something much larger. It wasn't about coffee or uniforms or patches on jackets. It was about respect. It was about the kind of bond that forms when people recognize decency in one another, no matter how unlikely the circumstances. That night, when the last bike pulled away and silence finally returned to the diner, Clarissa stood by the window and watched the taillights vanish into the dark. She knew the diner would never be the same, and neither would she. Because sometimes, the smallest stand you take can echo louder than engines and last longer than fear. It can change your life forever.